the software and solutions that were available to us, we just weren't happy with. And so as we started researching into, okay, what's out there, it was either a price issue or just the service or the support that wasn't there. So we made our own.
Okay, it is 3 o'clock. Welcome to Friday Afternoon Conversations. Friday Conversations? I don't know, we're still working title, Friday Conversations. Yeah. Our guest this week is Zane Schwendeman. Super excited to have you on the show. Woo!
Welcome, Zane.
We are missing Data Mining Mike. We deeply miss his presence and his energy. And I'm also grateful that I don't have to disclaim that everything that Mike says may or may not be true. But we've got a great group today. Super excited to have everybody here. Thank you all for being here. We will start out like we normally do. We'll go around the room, introduce yourself, what you do, your industry, your business name, if that's relevant, and then any events that you're aware of that are coming up that you're either attending, hosting, or just something that sounds like it would be a neat thing to be a part of. And we'll get this conversation up and running. Zane, I know we'll talk to you at length later, but give us a quick...
Yeah, so Zane Schwendeman with zebrago. So we help small business owners with handling customer communication, getting customers on their schedule. So while you're doing your skilled work, we're handling that customer communication piece so you don't miss out on customer calls.
Excellent. Welcome.
All right, Rob Bruder with IDIC Designs. I am a technology specialist and help small businesses arrange the right technology for their growth and success and profitability. So if you are asking, am I using the right software in the right sequence, I would love to have a conversation with you.
Excellent.
James Kettner. I usually talk about my J2K Sales Pros, which is one of my businesses for business consulting and sales consulting, etc. But I am a judge on unsignedonly.com. So if you are a songwriter, I judge 11 different genres on there, and winner gets 20,000 per genre. So it's a good thing to be a part of, and you just go to unsignedonly.com, and it's, I think, one of the biggest in the world for it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Love it.
Wow. My name's Val Money, and I'm a realtor in Spokane, and I'm going to be a participant in the Mastermind Connect event on June 17th, hosted by Art Connect at Burbity. So I invite you guys to check out the Mastermind.
Excellent.
Lisa Miller, I'm an arbitrator in Spokane Valley and candidate for City Council, position 1. My platform is public safety. We need to provide the tools and the training that law enforcement needs to fight crime now and in the future for us, keep us all safe. Fiscal conservatism, sharp eye on the bottom line. I consider myself a guardian of the public treasury, which I consider to be a sacred trust. And support for the small business community, such as those of you who are online and those of you who are here. It's the backbone of our economy, and I think you need some love. And there was a decision from the U.S. Supreme Court on a case that we have been watching here in this group, Ames v. Ohio, about reverse discrimination. The Supreme Court came down in favor of making it easier for your employees to sue you for reverse discrimination.
Interesting.
It doesn't mean that this person is going to win her case. It just means that her case is alive and it can continue. Probably will settle, so we're not going to get a lot of really good law out of it, most likely. But what we did get was the United States Supreme Court surprisingly saying it's going to be easier now to sue. And so that's something that small business really does need to be aware of. And there's a couple things you can do. Mostly, if you are going to take an action on an employee and you think that it might be a reverse discrimination situation, in other words, someone is not getting the promotion who is part of the majority group, whatever that is, you want to have all of that written documentation, and you want to keep that in the file, because that is the thing that will derail a reverse discrimination case based on this new U.S. Supreme Court case. So please take and pass.
All right, very good. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you for having me.
I am Kelsey. I'm with Naomi Con Agency. I'm a producer in home and auto insurance, and we're just here to educate you, give you all your options. So if you're looking for an agent in your corner or have any questions about insurance that is insanely confusing, I'm here to help.
Fabulous. Welcome. And I'm Jonathan Byron. I am a realtor here in Spokane, and I have become increasingly aware of how challenging and even almost scary real estate can be. And I get the opportunity to help clients navigate through what makes sense for them in this season of life that they're in, and how can I help them segue through that transition. So if you're thinking about real estate, if you're interested in real estate, you want to get into real estate.
GPS signal lost.
Oh my God. If your GPS signal gets lost,
You're the guy.
reach out to me. I will help you find your next real estate move. That's everybody, Rob.
Well, we're just gonna remember, we're at Action Business Furniture.
Yes, thank you.
On East Sprague and Park, and they sell furniture here. We discovered that today when we arrived. Some of our favorite pieces had been sold. So if you need business furniture, you need to replace that desk chair like I do. You need to get off the hardwood and onto something smooth, and check out Action Business Furniture. We're grateful for them to share their space with us every week.
Yes, excellent, wonderful. Also, Dave Ribble. I just want to give a shout out. Dave Ribble has been under the weather. He hopes to join us next week. In the meantime, fantastic coach, helps you stand out in the marketplace. So if you need a coach to help you through onboarding and being just showing up better as yourself, Dave is the guy to talk to.
All right.
Zane,
Yeah.
what are we talking about?
We are talking about just the paths that our businesses follow.
Yeah.
And I think the title we selected was it's not a straight line, right? We're with businesses, we're always looking for avenues, ways to adjust, and that can be due to market conditions. It can be due to even changes in our personal life. So really, just what is as you're going out of business, when to pivot, what is pivoting, and how to do so gracefully.
No.
So
I'm going to throw this out to the audience at home. We don't get a whole lot of comments, and I'm going to see if we can tease a comment out of somebody. And this is for the room as well. I want to know, what is a pivot that you are considering? What's a change that you're thinking, man, maybe I ought to? And I know, like, on a macro scale, that's a dangerous question. Like, if you're thinking about leaving your job, you don't want to say that on Facebook because your boss might find out. If you're thinking about moving out of state and you have 20 clients that are relying on you to do something physically, you probably have to keep that under wraps. So if this is something that's like not ready to see the light of day yet, let's not preponder that today. But what's a change? What's a pivot that either you've made recently, one that you made that was substantial, that changed your life trajectory, or something that you're considering that is, you're on the fence. Should I do this? Should I stick with what I've been doing? And so that's the question for the group. Pretty broad. Just about anybody should be able to weigh in on that. And you made a transition.
yeah. So with zebrago, I was at a plumbing company.
Yeah.
So we were really doing nothing now with plumbing, right? We're completely separate from that company. But it actually came apart because we're in the plumbing company, and the software and solutions that were available to us, we just weren't happy with. And so as we started researching into, okay, what's out there, it was either a price issue or just the service or the support that wasn't there. So we made our own.
Nice.
And in that, there's several kind of, I like actually pivot because it's a very flexible word, because it can be a drastic change and it can be several small changes. So I like to say that we made several small pivots as we're developing our platform. And that included bringing on staff to add in, now we didn't just develop a software platform. Now we have staff that are answering the calls. And so that's part of our system and our process. And so there's these small changes that are happening as we're developing what is now zebrago. And then the big changes, wow, this is actually really working great in the plumbing realm, and it's helping out this business And then you look and you see all the guys that they need help.
Yeah.
And it's funny, you look at, you would have a really good skilled tradesman.
Yeah.
And they could do the best job in the world, but if they can't handle their customer communication, someone's going to get fed up because they didn't get responded to. And there's so many Google reviews that are just, they never got back to me.
Right.
And it's a 1-star review. So
Yeah.
even just preventing that. So as we developed this and saw the need that there's a lot of these guys out there doing really good things, good work, but they just need help and they don't have the resources to hire someone to wait in an office for a phone call.
Right.
And so that was our big pivot, but it was all these little steps that led up to that.
Sure. Yeah.
I think it's key what you're doing because being an entrepreneur, one of the things I started was a moss removal business and getter cleaning. And what I used when I first started the business was Angie's List Home Advisor to do my marketing. And it was really good. Then Angie bought Home Advisor. And the way they structure it is they contact the customer, fills out a thing, I'm looking to get my moss cleaned off my roof, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden it goes off to like 7 different people. And then they just bombard these people. But what the people don't understand is those 7 to 10 contractors working on it, they're getting charged $30 pop, regardless if they respond or not. So it's making them respond really fast and it's irritating people at the same time. But the problem is those guys who are not utilizing that in the right way, when the phone call rings, zebrago can just contact them for them and get to it. They're going to win out bids faster than people who are trying to call that have been working on something for a few hours and can't get to it. Then they call and they're late to the party and they lost out on dollars.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's again another perfect case point of where we made that transition. And then in this, one thing I wanted to bring up too is talk about that, because I think sometimes when we look at pivot and we think it's this massive change, right? Like I was washing dishes and now I'm a realtor,
Right.
or whatever that is. But really, it can be anything from that massive change to something small, like maybe this process works better for helping out my customer, or I've got a new product and it's outperforming all my other products, so I'm going to transition to that. So I just opened that up to the group of what kind of small or big pivots have you guys seen or experienced in either business or even in, I think this really applies personally as well.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to jump in because this is essentially what has kept me in business for 25 years, is always being sensitive and aware of opportunity and not being afraid of, well, that's not in my business plan right now, but look at it as, but does it serve my customer? So when I started, I was a web designer with a product that worked out of a database. And I sold it to one client who all they wanted was to download PDFs from there. They produced PDF documents. They wanted somebody to come to their website, download it. And I said, yeah, I can do that. 20 years later, they sold that business and we were doing everything in their business through that simple platform I created, but we could adjust. Every time they said, here's an opportunity, we changed. We said, okay, we can do that. So I was thinking, you were asking earlier about, what could you add? Well, we had at one time, we had one ordering system, one way of placing an order. I converted that over about 10-year time into 5 different ways that customers could order from us. And it was the same process, but just presented 5 different ways. And I do that with my customers. When somebody comes up, they send me this ad or this offer that they got from somebody. And I look at the offer and I'm going, okay, this doesn't make sense. I do a little research. Yeah, this is just wrong. It's just not right. And I go and read what's the right way to do it. And I'm going, here's my research, this is the way to do it. And they look at me and say, can you do that? Yes. So now I have a new line of business because now I can monitor and maintain computers, because really I was data. Data is my love, and this is where, but I can help a customer, and that expands in what I can do. So it's similar. What I heard in your story is you were inside a business, but you realized that what you did was applicable outside, and so you brought it out of that business and into its own. And those opportunities are always available, even for, if you are employed. It's always ask yourself, what is it that the market is asking for? And can I fill that? And if I can, and it doesn't fit what I'm doing right now, then find a niche, find a place that you can start that and then build up, because to scale is to simply find opportunity and serve a purpose.
I would say for me, when I worked in Hollywood, at 19, I got into A&R. So A&R is artist repertoire, basically signing bands and artists to the label. And you're finding the talent and looking at it all the time. Well, I was in 2003 is when I entered it. 2003 CDs were starting to work themselves out, MP3s were starting to work themselves in. At that point, the whole industry was flipping. And I was watching it, and I was like, and my dad owned a lot of record labels before that and made millions of dollars in that heyday. That heyday had transformed within the 80s and 90s to that. And as I was looking at it, I was like, okay, I'm really good at picking bands. I know what's going to hit before it hits. Why don't I go to TV and film? Like, that seems like it'd be the coolest thing. So then I contacted my buddy who's a famous composer for films and TV shows, and I said, look, I'm great at picking bands. My dad, blah, blah, all these things, me. And I was thinking, man, it'd be so cool if I hit one TV show, one of my clients on there. My first year, I hit like 200 songs on TV shows. Wow. Just exploded and got the attention of a lot of big people because it's a niche. But what I did is I took my skill and I moved it to that set. And from that, I got offers and became head of music for films and then wrote theme songs. But that's just the thing, is like you. Like, when I came out here, I worked with you when I first got here. And one thing I can say about Zane that I love is Zane knows how to create a CRM base off of no money at all. He knows how to find those things and develop them. And a lot of things he showed me 7 years ago, I use for my businesses still to this day.
Nice.
So
It's pretty cool to see you now taking on other businesses and growing it that way.
Yeah, and it's been a lot of fun because you get like what Rob was saying too, there's things that work, if you're flexible with how you make adjustments, and again, those small little pivots, right? You're making those small changes. And then there's also the thought of, okay, when do I pivot? How do you look for things? And James brought it up, seeing a change in the industry, but you can, look at your competition. I talked about product a little bit, what's gaining traction. But again, I know we've got some other experienced pivoters in this room I'd like to hear from too. So
Pivots.
Yeah,
That's
good. No.
Friends.
Well, I have a different take, or I don't know if it's different, but my pivots have been, in my world, large and gut-wrenching, and I don't even know what to say, but I was a massage therapist for 16 years, and then I got into sales and did really well with that. Moved to Eastern Washington and bought a newspaper that I ran for 10 years, and got rid of that. I wish I'd gotten rid of it long before I got rid of it, but anyway, I literally gave it away because I couldn't take it anymore. And then I got into real estate, and I guess what I could say is well, on the one hand, all those pivots were gut-wrenching and anxiety-producing. On the other hand, I have always been like the entrepreneurial guy who's like gonna go for it, make it work out, and everything's gonna be awesome, you know? And on another aspect, like getting into real estate in particular, I thought real estate was going to be this sales thing. Like I was going to have to learn a whole new level of sales and constantly pound the pavement for my next lead and my next client. And I don't really want to live that way. And going back to the paper had me in constant finding business mode, and it was very anxiety producing. So what I have learned so far in real estate is that my skills as a massage therapist and from working with this nutritional company that I did for a long time are the most applicable skills to being a real estate agent, which is listen keenly for how to be of service, listen with my full heart, and just be totally focused on what's going to make a difference for the person I'm in front of. And that's why people gravitated towards me in my previous careers. Now I'm finding that people are gravitating towards me on that same premise in my new career called real estate. And like, I mean, I've had a handful of deals. I'm not killing it, I would say, but all the deals I've had have come my way. I haven't done anything to sell them. So while I have had a lot of anxiety and I'm dealing with that, I am happy that my skill set from previous decades have transferred to what my pivot is. And I just want to say I never thought that at 54 and 55 years old I'd be starting a whole new gig. I thought it was going to be me invested in a career for my whole life, you know, but it just keeps on working out that way. So I'm starting all over. I don't know that I was very clear, but I feel like I have a lot of experience with these hard right pivots, and I've learned a lot, and I'm grateful that some of my previous experiences bearing out to be helpful, you know.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And that's actually one of the notes I kind of have written down was when we look at those opportunities, our past experiences really shape where we can go and what opportunities are available. And the other thing with that is the intentionality. You know, so when we make a change, we're not just flippantly deciding, oh, this might be good. You know, we've done our research, we've done some, I think there might be a little bit of flippant pivoting. But even if you start flippantly, as long as you have that intentionality, your success rate is higher.
Well, in regards to flippant, because I was also big in photography and had gallery shows and stuff, but probably in the 70s, there was a book called Do What You Love and the Money Will Follow. Have you ever heard that book? Robert, you probably have. Well, I never read the book. I just went off the title. And
I got to interrupt you for a second because I did that with the 4-hour work week.
oh yeah,
I was like, that sounds great. I'll just work for 4 hours. Didn't go well. There's probably something in the book that I missed, but keep going.
it's exactly like that. I was like, okay, do what you love and the money will follow. I'm in.
Done.
And I have had a really rich experiential life because of that. Financially, I did okay in my 30s and 40s, but had I to do it all over again, I wouldn't have followed my passion. I don't know that that's good advice for people necessarily. I don't think it worked out that well for me, and I just wish I had played the whole game differently. And it was certainly the title of that book that had me go all these different directions over the years, you know.
Well, and I was gonna, when you shared that first bit, something kind of unlocked for me that I realized. I think that most of us go into whatever we're going into with a real intent to make that work, to make that, to where it's like, this is who I am now. When I started real estate 10 years ago, it was like, this is who I am now. And so for me at this juncture, right, to think about when you did the newspaper, like that became who you were. Like from your perspective, but from everyone else's perspective. And so I think that for us to think about, especially like the small pivots, sure, 100%, but like those big pivots, like the idea for you when you're sitting there as the owner of a newspaper to be like, oh, maybe I should try real estate. Like, I mean, like, we're all curious people, so like, we're always having conversations and all. Like, what would it be like to be a car salesman? What would it be like, you know, like those what ifs, sure, like you have those, but like the idea of actually not doing a thing anymore and doing something completely different, I think it's, I mean, there's a lot of fear and all the things, but like almost to your core, it's like you're upsetting the natural order of things. And you made a transition recently.
Mm-hmm.
You're about a year into your transition.
Yeah, I was thinking that because I think that like when I first started at the credit union, I just kind of fell into it. I was like caretaking and stuff before that, went to school for nursing, and I started it and I was like, you know, I just fell into it, but then I'm like, yeah, this is who I am. And I like moved up in the credit union and just kind of kept moving, and then hit a point where it's like, okay, is this what I'm gonna do forever? And I just like have this constant need to learn more and to know more. And so that's when the pivot happened. And I think that like all my pivots have been like stuff that as like an adult I want to know, like financials, insurance, like all these things that can like help people that people need and have. And I like to be knowledgeable in all those things. The only thing I haven't done is like financial advisor, which probably won't go down that route. But like I just like being able to know like in full circle all of it. And what's been nice in this transition is while there's like a ton of different things that my past has transitioned over to this a lot. The only thing that I am learning is more is the sales aspect, and that's interesting. I'm not a salesman, so that's been like where I've had to make smaller little pivots as far as like how to network. And you know, I really don't want to buy leads. I haven't yet, and I hope to never have to, but you know, it's just a matter of making those smaller little pivots to be able to keep going and keep doing what I'm doing.
That's awesome.
I just want to make a comment real quick.
Yeah.
That this is being shared on the internet and live, so when you're a financial advisor, we're all going to come back. And
Yeah. Mark this day, June 6th, 2025.
To respond to that though, because I'm in a related scenario, and this is what I advise. So I teach at Gonzaga, and I am working with 18 to 24-year-olds that are, you know, planning their life in their university time, trying to figure out what are they getting their degree in. And yet I know from personal experience that while I am passionate about what I got my degree in, which is the English language, I don't do English things. I don't teach writing. I don't write books and things. And I think it's important that I impart with my students that whatever it is that they do need to be a lifelong learner. That it needs to be constantly being open. Don't close your options, but be aware that you might get pulled in slightly different directions. And so I'm always encouraging them to, I'm get shown up here. Speaking of passion, but anyway, what I leave them with is always pursue something, but be open to where it leads you, because your skill, what you are good at, can be repurposed in different ways with maybe just a little new information. And that's something I pick up from Seth Godin. Your plan, your strategy is something that can change. The detail, of what you do will follow whatever your strategy is. So, build a system and keep building systems. If you have one thing you work on, it's system. And that's simply, what is the input, what is the process, and what is the feedback that helps advise any changes that you need to do. And that's what I try to do for my customers.
So, yeah, I am
I
gonna
know.
call you
I get
out.
shown
Rob
up.
said he hasn't written books. He has written a book, so we'll
Actually, and technically, that's my second book.
okay, so you have written books.
I wrote my first book in 2019. But speaking to finding your passion, and again, I understand where Val's coming from, because I'm passionate about things and things that don't make a lot of money. I mean, getting money from books is not what I did it for.
Yeah.
What I did it for was because my childhood passion, as a first grader, I was known for having 2 desks in the classroom. The first desk was where I sat and did my homework. The second desk my teacher gave me because of all the books I had checked out of the library, and I needed a place because I was reading so many different books at any given time. She let me have 2 desks. And one thing I knew from that point is I wanted to see my name. I read all these authors and all these books, and I just knew that I wanted to see my name as the author of a book someday.
Love it.
In 2019, my uncle had passed away. I was reinventing my life. I was getting into productivity. And my first book was basically, I was reading all these books on productivity. I was gathering, building my system. And I shared through email 14 lessons I learned on productivity. And my mentor, who was an author, and I'd been working with her on becoming a writer, she emailed me one day and said, that 14 emails you sent me,
A book.
that should be a book.
Nice.
And so I turned it into a book. So yes, I got my passion was to be an author. Making money was, whatever happens.
Yeah. I want to jump over to Lisa. Lisa, you said something at the beginning, and it wasn't even about this topic, but I want to tie it in and see if you can kind of speak to this other aspect.
Help
of
it
it.
any way that I can.
I love it. You said you're talking about this law that is potentially or likely going to get settled, and so we won't get a lot of good law out of it. And that I've never heard that. It's like that's got to be like a uniquely within the legal system that you guys are like disappointed, like, oh, we wanted this to get decided.
We wanted clarity. There's a 3-way split among the circuits. It's very confusing. Attorneys don't know how to handle things. Courts are confused. Clients are confused. And it's impinging on people speaking candidly to their attorneys. And, you need to speak candidly to your clients as well so that you can give good advice and understand the problems. So when something like this comes down where the Supreme Court all of a sudden surprisingly supports moving cases forward on reverse discrimination, I think we would all be very surprised at that result right now in this climate. Now is the time for parties to reach out to each other and say, maybe we're closer than we thought. Maybe there's a way to move on and the plaintiff can continue her career and we can support her as we always have. And we can pick who we want to promote, so that we can efficiently serve taxpayers, and because the defendant is a government agency here. And so when things settle, it's fantastic for the parties, but people on the outside who are looking for clear guidance from an appellate determination with an analysis and a case you can cite to, doesn't happen. And it's not that attorneys or the legal industry is disappointed that there wasn't a big fight. It's just we're looking for guidance and having trouble finding it. And so one of the things that I did and have done for my entire career is I try to be the person who looks for those areas of confusion, does the research, pulls the analysis together, explains it all, and then at the end has 4 bullet points. Here are the best practices until a court gives us guidance. And I had done that, not in this case, but in another case where it went up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court heard arguments and the very next day said, we changed our minds. And they just dismissed the whole mess, and now there's back to being a 3-way split in the nation.
Yeah.
So my article on that, which had here's the 4 points of best practices in this very confusing situation, remains good guidance.
Sure.
And so as Rob, you were saying that you wanted to have your name on a book, I wanted to try being sort of a scholarly producer, even though I'm not in academia full time, of these sort of guidance documents. And I do get calls. People do call randomly, especially on the things when I write on ethics. I get much more calls. But it's nice to talk to practitioners. It's nice to hear from practitioners. And I'm happy to be that person to pull it together, do the research, do the analysis, explain it all, get it published, have some practical guidance. And I do the same thing with small business with my legal minute, because there's always the takeaway.
Yes.
Right, there's always something practical. You don't even have to read this stuff. Just turn it
Go
over.
to the takeaway. The executive summary.
Right. So that's why I'm saying there's not going to be a lot of good guidance on this particular thing, because I do think it's going to settle now that the Supreme Court has spoken. I don't think Ohio wanted to do the case. Their public relations position is, we will continue to fight, and I think they're going to continue to fight their way right to a mediator.
Yeah.
I'll report back, as we
Yeah,
always
we'll look
are.
forward
We're
to hearing that.
monitoring.
Aren't 95% of cases settled by mediators anyways?
I don't know if they're settled by mediators, and I think the number's higher than 95, actually.
Well, when I studied it was like California, like the major ones, like California, Texas, New York,
Florida's a big,
and Florida.
yeah.
Those were, I think, 95%. This is 20 years ago.
But yeah, most things do settle.
Yeah.
And it's better that way. It's better than going to court. But sometimes you need a determination. It's an analysis that needs to be addressed. And in those cases, that maybe mediation is not appropriate. But I'll keep you posted. We're monitoring like a half a dozen things. So you guys don't have to worry about it. I'll handle it.
I love it. I love it. Something that triggered for me, this is a quote that I'm working on, and I've got it close to where I'm like, all right, I'm going to try it out on a small audience. So here it is. Our peace of mind or joy in any given situation depends largely on our ability to update our expectations of anticipated outcomes as the situation evolves. And so the picture that I saw that kind of brought that about is, if I'm like driving to an appointment, right, and I'm close to being late, but I'm still like, as long as everything goes well, I'm on time, and I run into a little bit of traffic, right? Like, okay, I want to get there on time, and I think anybody that watches the show knows, like, I'm a timely guy, like that's important to me. And so like maybe, especially here in Spokane, I know a shortcut that like will bypass that traffic. So I take that shortcut. Well, in doing that, maybe like I hit the curb, right? And I get a flat. And it's like, now I gotta like get out, take the wheel off, put a spare on. Well, and as I'm doing that, and all of a sudden it gets to the point where not only am I gonna be late to the appointment, I'm not showing up to the appointment, right? Like anxiety, stress, freaking out. The reality of it is I'm not going to make that appointment anymore. And the sooner I'm willing to adjust my expectation of the outcome and say, okay, let's say it was Zane I was having lunch with. Hey, all I have to do is text Zane, hey, I really hate to do this to you, but I can't make it today. Done. Right? And now all of that is gone. And now the next thing is whatever my next appointment is after that. And yes, there's going to be a relational repair that needs to happen, and there's all kinds of things. But like, I think frequently we get into this, and this goes back to the, like, I am a newspaper owner, I am a realtor, I'm whatever it is that like we perceive ourselves to be, as we let go of that expected outcome and say, maybe that's not, I'll use the universe, maybe that's not all the universe has for me. Maybe there is something else. And you look at all of that and maybe you say, well, you know what? I still like real estate. I'm still enjoying this. Like, it doesn't mean that like every time existential crisis strikes, you have to change your whole life. But it's, I think, like opening up like, wow, this is a path that I'm on right now that maybe is getting me to where I need to be for my next path. But also, it's just a point in time. Like, there's so much more potential.
However, you actually made an important statement in there and just kind of zipped right by it, because it comes back to who you see yourself as. Okay, and I can tell you from experience, I totally agree with you. Change your expected of the outcome, and you can deal with a lot of the issues. So last night, beginning of the week, I got an email from a friend. She was saying, "Hey, there's this event going on at Arbor Crest. You know, you should come. You know," and things.
Melissa.
And I'm doing my thing, and I'm just going, I gotta let Melissa know. I gotta let Melissa know that I'm gonna be there and things. And it's 12 hours to go, and I finally sit down and I register for the event, and I send off this email. Yes, I'm going to be there, and things. And I'm going. Okay, great, got that done. I look at my house. It says be there at 5:30. Okay, I leave my house at 5 o'clock. I think, okay, this is going to be great. I hit traffic on Maple Street Bridge, and I had traffic all the way to Upriver Drive.
Yeah.
And I was not going to make it by 5:30. Well, I do have this thing that I don't try to short circuit. It's like, I had a route, I'm following the route, I'm going to do this, I'm not. But the issue for me, the stress level, is how I see myself. And I struggle with it because I am the type of person that wants to do things for other people. So it's really, really hard for me to let go when it involves somebody else.
Yeah.
If it's about me, I'll change it all day long. It's Sunday morning. I'm going to stay in bed until noon. Why? Because it's only going to impact me.
Yeah.
But when I make a promise to somebody else, that's when it gets really hard to pivot and just let go and say, it isn't going to work. That is a 50-year journey it's taken me to get to a point of just saying, yeah, I know this doesn't look good on me because it seems like I'm always bailing on this, but I'm not going to make it.
Yeah.
So I acknowledge the way it appears. I have to accept that it's embarrassing and painful for me to have to do this, but I know it's better for me just to say it's not going to happen.
Although I'd say with that too, you're talking about being able to acknowledge yourself and see, and even in that though, there's kind of some, maybe, I'm trying to, not inappropriate, but disingenuous way of thinking, where you're saying, oh, I failed. You ran into traffic. You didn't fail. It's a circumstance. Circumstances happen. And so being able to see, okay, is this a choice I made, or is this a circumstantial situation? And then, yeah, when do I call it and just say, hey,
Yeah.
I'm late. It's not my fault.
Well,
I really wanted to be there.
And I understand that. I'm certainly not saying, the traffic issue, I couldn't do the traffic. But I had an interaction for Lisa that it was me. I just made a decision and I pushed something before I had all the things I needed in order to do it right, and it didn't work. And it's like, well, okay, at least I got something. But now I have to go back, and today I had to go and say, okay, I moved too fast. I didn't have all the answers, but it will be done before, it needs to be done. So there's always that balance, and personality is an issue. You have to be true to yourself, and passionate is important, but so is being realistic and saying, that's really outside my scope.
No.
Well, it's such a rich conversation, and when you talk about how you see yourself, how I see it is what you're talking about is who are you being in the moment when you make those pivots, because you could be making a pivot from desperation or poverty or whatever, or you could be making a pivot from being curious, courageous, of service. So I want to do more public speaking. I'll just say that, and I know and I haven't found a better way to articulate it, but a lot of it has to do with who you're being and how you're going to express and move from that spot forward. And I got into real estate because of money. I wanted to make more money. I was in a newspaper business that got an A+ for community impact, but an F- for financial reward. And I wanted to move something that, but my focus now, in terms of who I'm being, is being powerful, effective, and fully self-expressed. I want to be a fully self-expressed real estate agent in all the ways that means, including how I engage myself personally on an artistic level, how I engage politically, how I get my clients, and the kind of media I build around who I am. Like the paper was so oppressive, and I went from being fully self-expressed in Seattle to this oppressed person doing things that I didn't really feel passionate about. And I see the error of all that. And so my two guiding lights right now, well, three, but the two main ones are: A, is this step taking me towards being more fully self-expressed or less fully self-expressed? And the other one is leverage, which I wish everyone would talk about a lot more. But I was leveraged financially one time in my life, and at that point in my life, I had peace. I traveled, I did things that I loved. It was awesome. Like I said earlier, I got bit by a rattlesnake and was in intense pain for a year, and I laid in bed all year and got paid for that entire year. Mm-hmm. So I went from a 100% leverage business to running a newspaper, which was opposite leverage. Like, I went from putting in 10 and getting back 100, and now in the paper I'm putting in 100 and getting back 1, maybe, if I'm lucky. So full self-expression and the leverage are two of the things that I'm considering as I pivot into my new chapter that's going to last me the next 20 years until I just can't do it anymore. Yeah. So I feel like the conversation about pivot can be really intellectual and conceptual, but to Robert's point, I think you really have to look at how you see yourself and who you're being as a person and where you're speaking from.
I want to read a few of the comments. If we can take it. So yeah, we got some great comments out there. People, thanks for jumping in with comments. And I'll read this first and then we'll jump into it. Kevin Dennehy asks a question for Zane. As a small business owner, what are the top reasons to go with zebrago? And I want to actually start answering that based on something that Val just said, but we'll keep going. Matthew Guzman has been here a few times. Great fan of the show. Matt, shout out to you. Recently, I had a friend who went to college and got his master's tell me I did everything the right way. Why am I not receiving the income I was expecting? He got a job that paid him at a lower level in his industry. I don't think there's ever a right or wrong way at all. I think he couldn't accept that he isn't seeing his success immediately. He's thinking about leaving his career now, and I think this will help him understand that pivoting may help him. Great comment. Appreciate that, Matthew. Genevieve said time anxiety is a real thing. Absolutely. And then also, we are our own biggest critic. Sometimes we've got to stop and remember that how we see ourselves isn't always how others will. Allow ourselves some grace, although that can be easier said than done. Appreciate that perspective, Genevieve. And then Kevin's question, and I do want you to answer it, but Val, as you were talking about like running the newspaper and like you're doing all of these things that are like, this is not what I'm passionate about. One of the things that I love about zebrago, just as a model, is like if I got into plumbing to be a plumber, if I got into electricianing to be an electrician, like I want to fix electrical, I want to work on roofs, I want to, whatever that is, I don't want to be answering phone calls. I don't want to be looking at the schedule. I don't want to be figuring out all of these other things. I want to offload that to somebody. But as a small business owner, I don't have the resources to hire somebody to run the phones 24/7 when I could come up with a solution like yours that for pennies on the dollar, from my perspective, take all of that off my plate, put it on you guys. If you guys did real estate, you'd be hired a month ago when I first met you, like, done deal.
No, and that's, again, really the whole point of why we started what we do, because we saw the need. And the one thing that I always tell people, as far as, why use zebrago, it's because of my staff. Because I know they do a good job. I give them direction, I give them help and support and feedback. So we have a whole team that we're there to get better, and in our getting better, it's helping our customers get better. And one big thing, especially in call centers, scripts are a big thing, right?
Yeah.
I hate scripts. I worked customer service. You can't have a real relationship. You can't develop any rapport. No scripts. And sometimes it makes my staff a little uncomfortable. To like, I don't know what to talk to people. Have a conversation. So for anybody that's concerned about a call center answering, we're not a call center. We're people dealing with other people, scheduling calls. And that's honestly for me the biggest reason why we can help any person, maybe real estate one day.
Yeah. Keep working on that.
Yeah.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah.
Doing music and stuff, and people find out that you have connections and all that stuff, and that you can change their life. You have people coming up to you, right, and singing and doing weird stuff, and it's uncomfortable for me a lot of times, because sometimes I want to laugh, sometimes I want to cry, sometimes I just want to run, and sometimes I'm like, oh wow. Like, I remember I heard Tori Kelly, who's a big pop artist. I found her at 11 years old. I heard her at 11. She gave me chills. I was like, instant start. And then there's people that shouldn't be there. My hard job is to be nice, which Hollywood isn't. They'll just straight up just destroy you. But just because you want to do something doesn't mean you should pivot to it. If your skill set does not fall within that, I'm one of those hard critics that say don't do it, because you're not going to be successful in it. I went over to, I was helping a big business out of here and the customer service, and one of the guys was a tech, and he got hurt. And then he switched over to customer service. He is a mechanic and that kind of personality, and he should not be dealing with anybody. But my job was to kind of just be like, be aware of people, take a breath, think about what you're saying, typical customer service things. But I had to tell the owner, he does not belong here. He should not be in this position because it doesn't fit his skill set. He does not have typical skill sets that basic customer service has. And that with life is, we all want to do a lot of things. We have big dreams, and big dreams are great. And to be honest, I chase a lot of my big dreams. But I also always was like, is my skill set there? So if my skill set isn't there, once you get older, as we all are getting older, you realize you don't have time to pivot again as much. You're pivoting in short and shorter and shorter to where you have nowhere to pivot. I never went to college. I had good grades in high school, but I just went straight into the music industry. And I started many businesses and consult businesses of people who went to Stanford and USC and places. So you don't have to have any of that stuff. So anyone who's listening, it takes a certain kind of person to be that person, but you can do it. But I really say, before you pivot, look into it, look into how you market it, how you do it, how you make profit. I don't look at anything without profit now. My profit for my companies are anywhere from 75 to 95%, which is staggering. Normally you're going to be looking at a 30% margin and you're very happy. So you can either work smart and work less, or you can spend a lot of time with your 10% margin and be living the dream, and you're really hurt and sad inside because you can't pay rent. So to me, there's two sides of the coins, and you really have to really check yourself. And sometimes we're not all singers. Sometimes we're not all realtors or different things like that. But
no, I think that's really a good point to consider with a pivot. And it's something that, one, we don't, like, we might say we do, but we don't generally like critical feedback. And two, we're pretty awful at giving critical feedback. I super appreciate Stephen Hicks. He brands himself as the loud American. He's the guy that's going to give you that critical feedback. My wife is really great at giving me gentle critical feedback. Like, hey, I love your passion. I love your dream. let's look at the reality of the possibility of this. And it's not she's not trying to shoot me down. It's we need that, like, and to your point, like the whole don't quit your day job yet. You know, like if you want to be a comedian, go do stand-up comedy at open mic night and see if you can get, and you know, chances are really good your first time out, you're just not gonna. And if you can handle that and go back again, and you start to develop that skill set, sure. Jeremy Niffin is another name that came to mind. Pivoted massively into the role that he's in now. And it was something that when he first started, he'll tell you, he didn't have that skill set, but he went into it with this determination. I'm going to do this new thing. I'm going to stretch myself.
And that's an important lesson too. 'Cause I think I can riff a little bit on Jeremy there because you go into his background. He has that unassuming background. He was, a mechanical, he built things with his hands. He knew how to work with metal and things. Sales, marketing.
Yeah. An MMA fighter before that.
Yeah, an MMA fighter before that. He doesn't have anything yet. But the piece I wanted to bring up about was the lessons I'm learning from the online content that I'm consuming is the willingness to experiment.
Mm-hmm.
Is don't just jump and throw away the safety net. Come up with an experiment and say, I have a hypothesis. I think this is interesting. I think this has some opportunity. Let's build a little experiment. I'm doing that with somebody right now. She's posted about, I want to do a course. And I'm going, great. Let's do it for as little money as possible.
Yeah.
Let's do it really basic technology. Let's prove that it would actually work. Then if it's a big idea, then we'll work harder and do more in it. But always build in an experiment so you can walk away at some point and say, hands free.
Real quick, when I did really big concerts when I was younger, I really got into that. And my dad had sold out Knott's Berry Farm, Disneyland consultant, SeaWorld. I mean, he did it all. And I got the biggest place, and my dad was like, that's not smart. And I was like, why? It's like, I got the biggest fans. They're going to bring in people. And I didn't market because I thought their fans would just bring in 100 people that sat 2,000 people. And I had investors put into it and different things. And I learned from that. It's right. Start in a small room and work yourself out. You don't have to be the biggest baller or whatever. It will come in time.
Yeah.
But if you start and you test it small and grow yourself out of it.
It's great perspective.
I was going to say, kind of going along with all this, and one thing I took a quote from is Simon Sinek, and kind of matches to, as we near the end here, but he says, I don't believe in strengths and weaknesses. I believe that every one of us has characteristics and attributes. And in some contexts, those characteristics and attributes will manifest as strengths. And in some contexts, those characteristics will manifest as weaknesses. The goal is to put yourself in as many contexts where your natural characteristics and attributes will be to your benefit. So I feel like that fits so perfectly with, examine yourself, and when we're looking at ourselves honestly, and okay, what are my attributes? What are my characteristics?
Yeah.
And then where do those fit in? Sometimes we don't know. You have the people that just are tenacious and they go after something and they either make it fit or find that it fits. But just use what you have and see where it fits. And if it doesn't fit, that's where you can make a change.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, that's a great note to end on. We have 2 minutes left. Closing thoughts.
I think a pivot is an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Hands down, straight up. It's very freeing. And you can make some choices for yourself when you decide to pivot. And then once you decide what direction you're going to pivot into, then you can decide kind of how you want to manifest all of that. And I think a lot of the rules don't apply when you've played by all the rules and now you're like, it's pivot time.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I think too, like, if you're becoming an entrepreneur or you're pivoting, period, get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Period.
For sure.
And that, I mean, if you're going to be uncomfortable, it's like you're changing your shot in basketball. and you go left for the first time. Yeah, you're like a 2, you're like, my 1-year-old probably gets you better than me. They're right. But that's what happens. You feel like that until that repetition builds in, and then you start seeing the benefits of those things. It's going to feel awkward.
It's good. It's really good. Yeah. Something, Lisa, something you said there made me think of something, and then I think I've lost it. So I'm going to give
I just
myself
wanted to say, I sent you a thought. I took
sent
a
me a
thought
thought.
in your head.
Oh, yes, you did. Yes.
To thank you for this great conversation.
Oh,
Thank
thank you.
you for hosting us. And
Yeah.
it was just a great conversation overall.
It is a good conversation. It's an important one to have. So whatever your pivot is, whatever you're thinking about, everybody here at the room, thank you for being here. At home, if you're thinking about making a change, hopefully these things, I'm actually going to have to channel my inner Mike here, because this is the share moment, right? If this is valuable to you, share this with somebody that you think would also benefit from it. Sharing is caring, as Mike likes to say. We'll hope to see Mike next week. We have an amazing guest next week. I'm going to pull, no, I'm
We
not.
had an amazing guest this week.
We have an amazing guest every week, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, Zane, thank you. Appreciate you for being here. Next week is, I want to make sure, yeah, Heather Bryant. And Rob, I might have you introduce her because you introduced her to me. But we will,
Is that a realtor?
we'll have Heather Bryant here
No.
next week. And I think that's all the time we have. So guys, thanks for being here. We will see you all next week.